guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. Well, good morning. Let's turn on that power supply. Turn on that power supply. We'll go over here and we're going to turn that peak kit on. Make sure that radio's on. We'll turn our dead key down so we're not killing this little tiny two-pill. Guys, we are going to talk about this morning this little bad mammer jammer. My good friend Hugh, when I was a kid, his handle was Junkman. He used to own one of these things. This is the Eagle 300 HD. This is a good little amplifier. Been around and been running for a long time. This is the inside of the 300 HD Eagle. It's all printed circuit board, of course. It's a full bias. And the number one thing that happens with these boxes, and the reason this one got sent here, the guy bought this thing kind of on a thin whim. He got off eBay, and when he got it, he went to hook it up, and it wouldn't do anything. First things first that we noticed was the power wire was unsoldered from the little fuse holder. And the next thing we noticed is that this 500 ohm resistor, or 0.5K resistor was burned up. Then the other thing we noticed is that the input resistor over here was burned completely to the ground. This one right here. This is the low and high pad right here. So all the RF comes in, goes through or by this resistor through this switch, then back around over here to the input. Amp is actually technically built backwards from what we're normally used to seeing. Normally we'll put the output transformer over here, so the whole amplifier section's flipped around, so the output section's closer to the relay. But this thing's got a really cool two-stage preamp in it, and it's got a fully regulated and adjusted bias. That's done with this potentiometer here and this regulator circuit that's right here. And this circuit is actually controlled by its own keying transistor right up here. This is the primary transmit-receive transistor. It uses an NPN transistor, of course. This transistor is a 2N blah, 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 I don't remember, but it crosses directly over with, of course, the 2N 22222. I'll call you back in a second, Zane. My phone's over there buzzing. Because I seen this resistor was burned. Now, there's no known schematic for this amplifier really on the inner boob anywhere. So, make a short story long and a longer story even shorter. I have like 3 of these in the shop right now, and I went and I grabbed one of them off the shelf and looked at it and went, oh wow, okay, so it's got a 500 ohm resistor. The resistor, so if you guys come across one of these in the future and you guys are out there using this for some kind of reference, this little guy right here, I gotta be careful because this amplifier's got power to it. This little resistor right here is 500 ohms. We went ahead and upped the size of the resistor so it could take a little bit more punishment. Now the guy, he bought this, he said he was only into it for 90 bucks, which in today's market share is a steal. Taking into account these transistors that are in here are $105 a piece at current market share price, which I think is ridiculous. Thank you, Merited RF Parts, for giving us this high cost of transistor. So, no matter what he does, he's not at a loss. But he didn't even know if the thing was going to work or not. He didn't know about how to go about getting it running again. So he sent it here, and I just went ahead and resoldered his wire on. And then I pulled out the keying transistor, this one out of the 3, keying transistor preamp, and this one here, the third transistor that's in line right here, is for switching the bias on and off, okay? This is your input circuitry. Now these resistors are just colored because this thing has been driven so hard in the past. They're still reading to value, okay? So I'm gonna leave these be. But the RF comes in, goes through the relay, and as it comes out of the relay, it has passive or coupled capacitance in circuit. So all the RF's got to go through this capacitor, and then through these two resistors, which acts as a voltage divider. Now we've got this brown wire that comes off the input. It goes around and it's what's attached to the low and high switch over here. When you go into the low switch, it shorts these two connections together. This 100 ohm resistor coupled to ground, which presents a 50 ohm load. See, it's coupled back to the ground trace, which is right here. And that ground trace runs across and it goes over here to this screw. So in the process of doing this thing, I took the face and the back off, took all the screws off, and actually pulled the board off, so I didn't do the cheesy little thing where you cut the transistor right at the legs at the back. I actually got out the old solder sucker and did it appropriately and pulled the transistor out and checked it before I went and keyed it up and put it all back together. Another little side note is that there are spacers that sit between the heatsink and the board. There are 3 washers per screw. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws that keep this thing elevated off the board. That's what allows us to run this piece of non-Teflon based wire all over the place underneath. There's one going there, there's one for the on-off switch, and one for the preamp. So now you know. But this thing is running at full chooch for chotch. One of the things you got to do to be able to take this amp apart is you got to lift this resistor out of the way, and I did that by pulling it out here. So let's see, it'd be collector, emitter, base. So it'd be the collector, pull it out of the collector, and lifted that resistor up. So we put it all back together and we got it running again. Let's do a quick demonstration on this thing real quick. So we'll start here. As we can see, the preamp is obviously working, which is cool. Go ahead and shut the amp off. All right, let's get ourselves situated. 1,000 watt slug in PEP, 1,000 watt slug, an average 5 watt slug in reverse back from the bird, 10,000 watt dummy load. We use a 2950 with a 5 watt slug between the 2950 and the little 2-pill. Hello, 19, 20 watts coming through. Hello, nothing coming back. And as I say in all videos, this meter is reading the reflected power between the radio and whatever I'm testing on the bench. And so if the RF wasn't able to go from the radio down to coax through the amplifier and back through all the other different line sections and down to the dummy load, it would show up as hello, reflect. So we know our pass-through tune is good. So with 20 watts of drive on low, go ahead and key this up. That's approximately 1 watt worth of dead key going in. Making about 200, 210 watts. Input reflect. That means the RF's going into the amplifier nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and put it up on high. About 280, almost 300 watts. Otherwise, exactly what the front of this thing says it's supposed to do. So our input reflects a little bit high. We're not going to get excited about that, because remember, it's actually hidden behind this voltage divider. So now the guy says to me, he goes, but if it's got Toshibas in there, why doesn't it do more power? And I said, well, it's the limitations of the circuit. So he goes, well, punch it up a little bit. I said, okay. So this is the amplifier working as stock. This is in its stock configuration with the stock power wires coming in, which are more than adequate to do the job. This thing will talk its ass off for another 20 years. Man, that heat sink is dirty. Look at that. But the rest of this amp is pristine. Look at this cabinet. It's pretty. Okay. So now, let me do some modifications to it, and I shall return. Be back. Okay, so we did a couple little small things to this and made it run a little bit better. We put flyback resistors in here, feedback resistors, however you want to refer to them. And we took a turn out of the input transformer and we bypassed the input pad. Now by doing that, let's go over here and we'll look at our old watt meters here. Now, we've got everything set up as before. Same 20 watts worth of drive. So now we're up to about 330 watts. Versus a very anemic 280 And here's the thing that's the most important to me. Let me reorientate the phone or the camera in my hand. Got the input reflect to drop way down by actually bringing the circuit into resonance and then giving any excessive drive a place to go into the flyback resistors. Okay. That being said, because we're not running into an attenuator, if you leave the amplifier on high, you can drive it with a little bit bigger radio now and you won't have any parts burn up. So now we can go and hit this with, like, let's say a little striker. Now we don't know what the material makeup is in the transformers, and the input transformer is too small for us to really get a super high performance out of this thing, but let's go ahead and we'll turn the amp off again. With about 80 watts of drive from our striker. Now we're getting 400 out of the same 2-pill. So we got another 100 watts of performance out of it, but we had to increase the drive a little bit. Solid 400 watts. And a low input SWR tune once again. So I'm going to put this in the done pile. I really am. This thing is a classic old school girl. There's a whole bunch of stuff we used to do. We'd take the output transformer out, take the input transformer out, change that all around, change the number of turns, change a whole bunch of other stupid stuff in this box. And the problem is there's no fan on this guy, and it gets warmer than hell, and then everything melts down. So that's as far as I'm going to take this thing. I'm going to put the tin on it. We're going to put it in a box, and we're going to send it back to the gentleman that owns this thing. And today, one of my big time deals I've got to do is today I've got to purchase a new camera. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The whole bottom side of this camera that I'm using right now, the little foot of it's all cracked and broken. It's held together with super glue, and I can't afford to have my channel go down just because the camera's not working. You know, I definitely ain't going back to shooting these videos on a goddamn cell phone. Just not happening. So I get to sit down and bring myself up to speed on a new 4K camera. So you're going to see that change here in the next couple days. We're going to go to a multi-camera system over here. It's definitely time. So, well, Mr. A, your little 300A is working good. Your $90 purchase has turned out well for you. I don't think you're going to have any kind of problems with it. The only other thing that we could have done that I really don't want to do is bypass the fuse in the back. That usually helps. It'll pick it up a little bit, but it's as good as it's going to get. A little 400 watt, 300 HD Eagle in really pristine condition. Gentlemen, my name is BBI. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho. Come check us out, www.bbiamps.com. Come find me on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and right here on the YouTube Gargler. There goes my phone again right now. You guys got any questions, anything I can help answer for you? Or if you got a little project you want me to work on, give me a call. I'll see ya. I gotta go. Bye.